Hello everybody, this is Mr. Alex and today we're going to be doing about adjectives, comparatives and superlatives. So first let's talk about what an adjective is. Well, an adjective is used to describe a noun or the pronoun, okay? So we're adding to the pronoun or the noun. For example, you've got tall, cold, or green. So these are all words that we use to describe a noun. Okay, so what ways do we usually use to describe a noun? So maybe you want to talk about the appearance, so you could have fat or thin. There's many others as well. Maybe you want to talk about the quantity of the noun. So a few examples here are few or some. Maybe the size or shape of the noun. Could be circular or deep or shallow. There's many more. Personality. Okay, if you want to talk about the noun's personality, annoying or brave. Color, black, white, green up here. And the time, early or daily, are some examples there for you. When we're using an adjective, where do we put the adjective in relation to the sentence? Well, they can go both before or after the noun. So here I've got three examples before the noun. The black cat is in the kitchen. The expensive jacket is for sale. The old house is on the street. So here the adjective is before the noun. So cat, jacket, house are your nouns. Here are some examples after the noun. The man is happy. Man here being the noun. She is young. Young here is the adjective, she is the noun. My mother is beautiful. However, note that when you're using the adjective after the noun, we must be using the verb to be. So that's is, am, are. The boys are tired. Mike is hungry. The dog is tired. Or you could have the dogs are tired. Okay, so remember we must use to be if your adjective is after the noun. So let's do some exercises. Here I have a selection of sentences for you. What I'd like you to do is both find the adjective first, and then once you've found the adjective, you can find the noun. So if you're watching this video, you may want to pause the video now so that you can work on these exercises. So, finding the adjectives, in sentence 1, we were sitting in the kitchen drinking some hot coffee. You should have hot as your adjective and coffee as your noun. In sentence 2, Mrs. Bean is a wise woman. So here the adjective is wise, and for this sentence I've said that the noun is woman. It could also be Mrs. Bean as we're describing Mrs. Bean. English is not my native language, but I love learning English. A bit more difficult here. The noun is language. We're talking about language, and the adjective is native, to speak the language at a native level. The busy waiter poured coffee into the empty beaker. So here we actually have two adjectives, both busy and empty, with waiter and beaker being your nouns. A young man carried the heavy suitcase for Mr. and Mrs. Bean. So here we have young as an adjective to describe the man, and heavy is the adjective to describe the suitcase. Next you have, I had to sit in an uncomfortable chair at the football match. Or chair here is the noun, and uncomfortable, because the chair is uncomfortable, so we're describing it. There is international news on the front page of the newspaper. So you have news as a noun and newspaper are a noun. So the adjective for news is international and the adjective for newspaper is front page. Then lastly we have my mum is a wonderful lady. So you could have lady as your noun, wonderful lady. Or actually with this one and the second one, it could be mum as your noun or Bean as your noun, Mrs. Bean. Because we're using the verb to be here as well, is a wonderful lady. Okay, hope you got all those right. Now let's move on. Next we're going to talk about comparatives and superlatives, which are a form of describing adjective used to compare two things. Both the comparative and the superlative are comparing things. Okay, but a superlative is used to compare the things at the top and the bottom, or the highest and lowest level. So if we're using a comparative, we have to use the word than after it. And if we're using a superlative, we have to use the before the superlative. And remember, when you're adding an ER, adjectives always follow the CVC rule. So what's the CVC rule? Well, if you have an adjective, for example, big, B-I-G, your B and your G are both consonants, so they are C, and your I is a vowel, so it goes C-V-C. And if a word is CVC, you want to double the last consonant to add the ER, so big becomes bigger. So here's the first set of rules for using comparatives or superlatives if your adjective is one syllable. So nice and easy, we usually just add ER for the comparative or EST for the superlative, remembering the CVC rule. So here we have big, bigger, biggest, tall, taller, tallest, small, smaller, smallest, hot, hotter, hottest. So remember all these adjectives here are one syllable. We double up the last consonant if it's CVC. And then also we just add EST for the superlatives. You can pause now if you want to look further. So what about comparatives and superlatives that have two syllables? So happy, crazy, nervous, massive, or quiet. Well, it's a bit trickier when we're using two syllables, okay? So we can still add the ER for the comparative, but we can also sometimes now add the word more or less. We add more or less. Now, in all of these, you can always still say, for example, here you have happy, happier. You could say more happy. It is grammatically correct to say more happy. However, happier is much better. Okay? So it's about it not necessarily being correct grammar, it's just a natural feel for the language. So you have to understand which is better. So happiest, crazy, crazy, craziest. Here, nervous. You can't say nervous-er. Here we say more nervous. Massive. Can't say massive-er. More massive. Quiet. Quieter is okay. People do say quieter. That's absolutely fine. They also say more or less quiet. So for the two syllable sounds, it's more just about knowledge. You have to know which is which. There is no particular rule about whether you add more or you add the ER. And it's the same for your superlative. And lastly, we have the three syllable or more. It should be three or more syllables. You no longer start using ER or EST. Now we just say more or less for the comparative, more or less, and your superlative, most and least. So more or less wonderful, most least wonderful, most wonderful, more wonderful, more beautiful, most beautiful. Okay? Here we have some exercises for you, so if you can pause it now to have yourself some time to go through these exercises, We'll go through the answers shortly. Okay, so your first one, you had the word intelligent. Okay, my sister thinks she's more intelligent than me, but I don't agree. Okay, than is your comparative, intelligent is your adjective, and it's a comparison, so it's more intelligent. Avatar is probably, and the adjective here we wanted was bad. So film I've seen, so we know that it's got to be a superlative, and it's bad, so bad becomes the worst. Remember the for your superlatives. What is wet month of the year in England? Well, it's a question. Month of the year makes us know that it's got to be a superlative. The wettest month of the year in England. Do you think the Harry Potter films are than the books? So here we have than, we know it's a comparative. Are better. You don't say gooder, it's better. I think 4 was than Avengers. Than, comparative again, funny, funnier. Was funnier than Avengers. Is Angel old than Sandy? Again, than, we know it's a comparative. Older than Sandy. John is nice person that I know. That I know. It's got to be a superlative. So we know it's the, and it's got to be the EST. Nicest person that I know. Now, check your answers and keep studying up your comparatives, superlatives, and your adjectives. It's goodbye from me. Bye-bye.